learned a lot, worked really hard, learned a lot about how agency works. The thing that was proven over and over again was like, you gotta love the people that you're working with and you gotta believe in the thing. If it's not something that's necessarily in your wheelhouse, you have to find what it is to fall in love with. If you can't fall in love with it, how could you ever convince other people to? How do I fall in love with that world so that I can talk about it like I love it? And then I always would. I would always love it.
Welcome to the Calgary Sessions podcast. This is episode number 156. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Before I get into it today, if you like this one or any previous ones, please goddamn subscribe to it and leave some stars. I'd appreciate it. Today's guest, this will be, I don't do any research on people. You know nothing about me, so this is great. I do zero research on people. I loosely know they fit into the entrepreneur, athlete, artist bucket, and that's it. So when I do like a 2-minute Google search and I'm like, oh yeah, she fits. And then I stop.
Certainly not an athlete,
well,
to be clear.
I think I've had one or two people that have been like the unicorn of all three and actually like operate at a high level in all three. So it's like a strange spot. Our mutual friend Jeremy did the intro, which is really cool. Yeah. I tried to get him on the show, but he blew me off. So
we'll get him.
Yeah.
We're going to get you, Jeremy. Don't you worry.
So please name and who you are.
My name is Alex Kingcott. I'm a business owner. I'm a big arts nerd. A Calgarian. I don't know. That's it.
It's the question. The last couple of the questions kind of not catch people off guard, but when you ask it, they have to think about it.
Yeah.
And it's fun for me to listen to how people like who you are. And some people there's a whole bunch of different angles they go down. So
for sure,
it's always entertaining. And some people are like, I guess that's what I am.
I think if you were to ask somebody like, what do you know Alex for? Right. Probably it's through work, right. Or because I'm the person who's constantly like, this show's coming to Calgary, you have to get tickets. Yep. Or I'm like the arts planner of our friend group. So yeah, that's mostly who I am.
It's funny though, right?
To people.
Like, yeah, and people know you a certain way, and then
yep.
But yeah, there's so many different angles, which is that's why this is a cool experience for me. And the reason I don't do any research, because I don't want to do the Wikipedia interview. It's like, tell me about this, and tell me about this, and tell me when you won this, and
I'm gonna go on Wikipedia and tell them I'm an athlete, and then just like really, no one Wikipedia wouldn't even believe me. Least coordinated indiviable on this podcast.
It's very natural.
Oh yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's no aptitude.
I don't know if you probably haven't seen one of these.
Yeah, I watched Lourdes. Who's
you did?
I'm a huge fan of hers.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
She's spectacular.
Yeah, if you ever want to feel like an underachiever.
That's what I felt.
I'm like, my God.
And so hers was fun because sometimes I have these little moments where I'm like, okay, who's going to be a great guest?
Yeah.
And if the pipeline isn't like full and I just go on Google, I'm like, I type in something like cool Calgarians or like.
Yeah, you said you cold emailed her.
Yeah. And then when we sat down, it was just like we grew up in the exact same areas of town.
Twins.
And I had no idea how like spectacular she was.
Yeah, she's prolific.
Just the way she speaks and like delivers.
I'm a publicist, so this is how I feel most comfortable. If we could just talk about other people being cool for this whole podcast, I'd be happy.
Just propping people
I
up.
could do a full hour on why she's cool. She's awesome.
Yeah, we've been connecting back and forth recently on a project that we're working on. So she's just been,
stop listening to this. Just go listen to the Lourdes podcast again.
And again.
And again and again. She's so cool.
The best, yeah. I agree. So now you have an idea what's about to happen. So
yeah.
We propped her up. So either the people are going to like get into this for 5 minutes and then turn it off and go check out hers, or...
Yeah, and you should. You should. It's been really nice. Have a nice night.
So take this thing back. Where you grew up, how you grew up, parents, siblings, jobs, school, and we'll kind of weave our way to where you are today and all the things. So wind it back.
Okay. I'm from Red Deer.
Yep.
And my parents are both entrepreneurs. And I have two brothers. So we grew up, my parents are both entrepreneurs and arts nerds. So I do think I come by this honestly. I was a big theater dork, still am. And they worked really, really hard. I think they were sort of serial entrepreneurs. My mom was, she's done a million things. She's so cool. When I was really little, she had a florist shop. Mr. Dressup came once and bought something there. It was like the biggest day of my life. And my dad had a production company. So we had like a big warehouse, and then they had a storefront, and then she did florals for like big weddings. She started a wedding trade show business, so she's been doing that for 25 years. So I, from a very young age, like went to work with my parents. Oh. And so being an entrepreneur was the last thing that I ever thought I would be. I'm not even sure I knew what it was. I just sort of assumed everybody went to work, and like I don't call them mom and dad. I call them Lenora and Sheldon, because like we went to work with them. So you can't yell like mom from the back of the office. You yell Lenora. So yeah, my brother is also, he's an independent artist, and he runs a company too. So I think we all just, that's what we knew. I knew for sure that I would be in the arts in some way, and I knew for sure I would not own my own business. So
here we are.
1 out of 2. But I loved like musical theater specifically. I would round up all of the neighborhood children and make them watch long classic musicals until my parents would find them and release them like rats. They would scurry away. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to watch The Music Man every day, but apparently that's the case. And I watched the Tonys. The Tonys were a very big deal. And this is before YouTube. So like you had to, be there to watch it. And then whenever we could, my parents found opportunities for us to see things. And my brother was really into film, and I was really into theater. So it was just sort of what we did as a family. No athletics whatsoever. My older brother was a very, very good soccer player. So I think that they had hoped, but
nothing.
It was a no. Just a art dorks. And then...
Was that like art dorks all the way through, like elementary, junior high? Was it?
Oh, yeah.
And was it just like in you?
I don't remember anything else, so I guess so. Yeah.
Like your parents weren't like grooming you to be this art dork. It was just...
Oh, no, hardly no. No stage moms here. I think my mom was in musicals when she was younger, and my dad played Oliver when he was younger. Like it was part of our vocabulary as a family, but I mean, we certainly weren't very well off. We weren't like in ballet and doing things, and it was just, I think we sought it out. A lot of library time, a lot of renting old movies, and I don't think it's a normal thing for an 11-year-old to have a Les Mis themed birthday party, but it was for me. So yeah. And then grew up doing shows and
like all in on this, like the show idea.
I think I thought that it was the only way to be involved in that world.
Right.
And I knew, I mean, I loved my parents and I loved all the things they got to do, and I thought that they were really cool, but I wanted like braces and family trips and vacation time, and like that did not exist. And like a family of entrepreneurs, it was, I look back now, especially being one, and I think, holy shit, they worked so hard, and they had 2 brats. My older brother's 10 years older than me, so he was kind of on his way, but they had 2 like little rugrats. Like I don't know how they did it. And here we are just like belittling them and being like, yeah, but Brittany's dad gets 2 weeks vacation, and they must have been like, you're such dicks. We were just jerks. Like we had no concept. They never, ever, ever made us feel like, we were different. We just grew up thinking that was normal, and it was.
I find it really interesting that they both were entrepreneurs, and here you are doing your thing. And did they talk about it at all, or was it just, or you just looked
I guess.
Like, do you think they actually like had the conversation of, okay, we actually work for ourselves, and here's like, like planted seeds along the way, or did they just show you? I think by
comparison. Like, I think we would look at maybe other families that had, like corporate one parent, stay-at-home other parent or whatever. And I'm sure we like learned by comparison, but we went to work with them. We saw like how they worked really hard. We saw how they dealt with customers like firsthand. We saw from them that how you treat people is the most important thing. Like, just do good work and be nice to people. And, you know, sometimes a business will do really well and sometimes it might fail, but because you have those good relationships, like, you will be okay. And I think that was the biggest lesson that we took, but probably by osmosis. I don't think that they ever jammed anything down our throats. And not every business is successful. So I think that they probably would have been very happy if we had both become doctors or lawyers or something in the corporate world, with HR departments and whatever. Like, I'm sure they would be thrilled if that happened for us. But they're also, I think, pretty thrilled and proud of what we do now, which is nice. And then we moved to Calgary when I was in high school. I think I was 16. And I remember being really, like, freaked out by that because I was in, like, a really small school, you know, like maybe 30 kids my whole growing up. And then I was all of a sudden at a great big high school. But it was the best thing that they ever did, was kind of pluck us out of a safe, small environment and bring us to one where we had to and we had to make new connections, and we couldn't stay small-minded, you know, small connect. Like, we couldn't do anything small. We had to think bigger. And so I'm very grateful that they did that when they did.
Why'd they bring you guys to Calgary?
I think work. I think that, like, they were ready to make the move. Their companies had sort of grown here. And I do think that they saw, like, oh, there are more opportunities. There's bigger things for them if they get to, you know, be in new programs, or their careers could, you know, do, knowing what they're interested in. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But yeah, it was for sure a work thing first. But it was, the best thing that ever happened. Because
it's an interesting age to move.
Yeah.
You know, like, so for me, you know, high school I grew up in Calgary, so it was like, I was in the same school from K to 9. And then to go to a big high school just down the street, it was like 1,100 kids or something. That was enough for me to, you know, manage in my head. But I can't imagine coming from a small town to a big city high school.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot to figure out.
I had the same 30 kids for, like, the whole growing up. And then all of a sudden, big high school in a new city. And you all kind of come from the same junior high. You kind of go to pretty much the same high school. Everybody was new to me. So yeah, it was a stark adjustment, but made it, you know, probably because I found the theater department. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I had the world's best teacher, Robin McIntyre, who, I'm sure I was so annoying to her, and I wasn't
the energy, like,
I
the
wasn't
excitement?
a great talent. Like, I'm sure she didn't see me walk in and think, oh, I found my muse. She was more probably like, how do I fit this dork into my productions? But I still would follow her anywhere. She was the most generous, insightful, professional theater person. And she treated us like we were professional theater people and not just like kids putting on silly shows. She was a wonderful teacher. So I always had a safe space in her department, even as I was, like, adjusting to school.
When you show up to a room, are you fairly confident? Like, when you walk into a room, are you okay to...
I think so.
Yeah, to go, like, move around a room and kind of, whether it's classes or rooms, and just kind of interact?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I was pretty well adjusted, all things considered.
Well,
but there's also, like, a theater kid thing.
Yeah.
Where there is a line, I'm sure, of obnoxious energy there. But in a safe enough place where you're allowed to settle down and be yourself. I think I was my best self when I was in her classes, for sure.
To have that person in your life at that age, like, you kind of light up when you're talking about her, just because she was that impactful. It's kind of it's rare. Like, I can't.
You didn't have, like, a high school teacher who like saw you?
No, because I didn't. School wasn't my.
School wasn't it for me either. I'm not that I'm bad at it. I'm bad at some of it, math. But what I loved about Mac, is what we called her, Mac. She really didn't talk down to us, so we had to come to her level, which was great. Yeah. And I never starred in the shows. Like, it wasn't like I walked in and all of a sudden it was my department. But what I loved creating the world outside of the play. So whether or not I was in it, and I was in, let's say, half of them, but never, like, the star. I didn't necessarily want to be, but I got to make the programs. I got to do the lobby setup. I loved that. And I'm very similar to my dad in this way. My dad and I went to Cirque du Soleil when I was in college in Vegas. And I remember looking over at him, and it was Love, if you've ever seen it. It's
No, I
like
haven't seen that one.
spectacular. It just closed. I'm so
Okay.
sorry to brag about it. And you can't go see it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's spectacular. It was their Beatles show, and I was watching it, and I would look over at Sheldon, and his eyes were always up. Like he likes seeing how things are working more than he likes the thing. And so I think I'm very similar to him in that way. I loved that. And so she found for me the Alberta Theatre Projects, which is in Arts Commons now, formerly the EPCOR Centre.
Classic.
Had a program called the Junior Apprenticeship, which took students who were immediately out of high school. You had to be 17 or 18.
Yep.
They took 2 at the time, and then they took 1 student immediately out of university. So there were 3 of us. So you had to apply for it, and you got, I think it was like $100 a week, but you got 50 weeks in the company.
Wow.
And a desk and a job, and you did every single role within the company.
Wow.
So I deferred sort of all other plans when that kind of came around. Like I had done some professional theater while I was there, and I had done these like a tour for the Alberta Centennial. Like I loved the performing part of it, but I didn't know about all of the other jobs or roles or contributions you could make. And I think she saw probably a small lack of pure talent and an aptitude for the other pieces that you just don't know exist. Certainly not then. Like maybe more now with TikTok, and like you see more behind the scenes of like Broadway or something, but I did not know that was a thing. So she encouraged me to apply for that, and she sent in my application for me on a fax machine.
Amazing.
And I got it. And so I had, if it weren't for her, I can see like the paths taking 2 different things.
Because finding a creative path, I'm not going to guess how old you are, but I feel like we're in a similar like age range when you're talking about faxing. I feel like there's
the CBE. So they probably still have a fax machine.
But like the creative path idea back then was pretty vague. Like unless you were like traditional path of, go to your counselor and they tell you, here's your things, need these marks, and go down that path. There wasn't a lot of options for creativity. There's no, like you said, there's no TikTok, there's no YouTube.
Well, how would your counselor even know, right? Like the thing about showbiz is that what's on stage, what's on screen, what's on the wall, like that's the work. And they don't want you to know about the other pieces of it. They don't, you clap for the, conductor at the end of a musical. That's kind of it. And until then, like as an audience, you're not really supposed to think about how there's a pit with, 20, if you're lucky, beautiful musicians down there. You're not supposed to think about the lights. Like that's the whole point. There's a mystique. And so it is gatekept, I think, for a reason, but I found it fascinating that I found it by myself. And then she was like, okay, well, there's other things for her. She needs to see more. So yeah, she changed my life. And then I think with the foundation of my parents being like, you can do whatever you want. You can do absolutely anything, and be prepared to do it yourself. And then there's a lot of joy and fulfillment in just doing it yourself.
You're pretty lucky to have that person in your life that actually put you on that path.
Totally.
And
hugely
like random,
lucky.
right? Like
hugely lucky. Yeah. The other, there was a boy named Nick who was in it with me. He was the other JA. He's like a multi-award winning lighting designer in Toronto now.
Wow.
We got super lucky. So it was, I think, 2006 or 2005.
Yep.
And we got just a full year. I got to do Tinkerbell and Peter Pan, and then I got to build props. I got to run the box office, or I got to work in dramaturgy. I got to rip tickets. I got to go to like help with the fundraising department. Absolutely everything. I spent a full 7 days organizing headshots. It's just I learned every single thing. It's a brilliant program. I think it still exists. At least it did recently, but it was truly life-changing. And I got to see just how many hands, how many different artisans, how many different professionals touch a show. Yeah. From, raising the money to put it on to archiving it when it's over. It's just a huge amount of work. And then I fell in love with the publicity department, and I was like, oh, I can tell stories, and I'm a good writer, and I can be as creatively involved in this world that I love without having to be on stage. Thank God I figured that out at 17. I saved myself and a lot of other people a lot of grief. I figured it out fast.
You're making $100 a week?
Mm-hmm.
Was that your full-time thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Full-time and then some. I was there all the time.
When you're...
And a bus pass. I got $100 a week and a bus pass.
Get anywhere. You just have to wait.
The world is my oyster.
It's a lot. It's a lot to experience at a young age. And
it's such a cool program.
And did it just like all make sense? You're like, I'm in the right spot? Like, did you ever question?
Yeah.
Yeah. This was just like.
I felt lucky.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel like imposter syndrome is a thing. I was for sure nervous. I wanted to do well.
Yep.
And I felt lucky to be there. I felt very privileged that I was the one who was selected.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I was there for a reason. That was for me. It felt custom designed for me. It was like giving the keys to the kingdom. I'm allowed to, not even just being paid to. I mean, not much, but I'm allowed to hang out in a space like that. It felt like a huge privilege.
So crazy. It's so crazy. And when I say it, I mean like that you found it that early.
And I've been in touch with other people who've gone through that program who had similar experiences, and some who were like, oh my God, I hated it. I was just basically cheap labor for a year. And I was like, great. How great that you didn't love it. Mm-hmm. Because before you spend, 4 years going to school to do it or whatever, I figured out what part of that cog I fit into so early and with such generous people. I'm so lucky that happened. And that I learned all the things I never wanted to do. Like I could never be an actor. Like not ever.
The interesting piece about like that experience is that you got to try a bunch of different things. Because I think some people get paralyzed of like waiting for the thing, and they wait and they don't try anything.
And I think about this now, every publicist should have to go do that. Like I'm a publicist primarily for arts and culture, and I can say, I made those props. So when you say you need something for a photo shoot tomorrow, like I know how hard those people work, and I've seen the stresses of that department. When you ask an actor to wake up at 6 a.m. to go do an interview, like I know that means that they had a warm up and a fight call and a wig prep, and then they had to do their own makeup, and then they had to go on stage. And they, by the way, just got off a flight where they flew in from Des Moines to do this show that morning. And now you're asking them to get 5 hours of sleep and wake up. Like I know, because I had the privilege of having just even a small glance into how much work all of those things are. And so everybody should have to do that. It's like, I feel like every Canadian should, before you're allowed to like leave Canada, you should have to say you went to like a certain number of places in Canada. So it's like that. Like I felt like I paid my dues in a little tiny way, even as a 17-year-old, by seeing how much work it is. You're not just asking for something that seems easy. It's
show up and talk.
It's so much work. What they do to create those things is so much work.
When you found the publicity, is that what you call it? The publicity section?
Yep.
What was it that just like clicked for you?
It was storytelling for sure, but it's just like theater dork evangelism. It was like what I did by myself anyway. I come by it honestly. Like it's
just who you are.
It's just who I am. Yeah. So the fact that I get like people open emails that I write that say, this is a cool show and you should go see it. That feels like a very natural extension of who 11-year-old Alex was too. I made my friends watch like this. Like just brutal.
It's amazing.
Like that's such an inappropriate movie for an 11-year-old. It's like that's just who I always was. So I really loved that department. I loved the team there also just seemed really enthusiastic and the kind of people I'd want to spend time with. Yeah. So I'm still really good friends with those women. So like, again, like here's like another group of like female, creative, passionate people who were like, yeah, you're good at this. You should do this. And it was a wild season. I don't know if you know who Ronnie Burkett is.
No.
He's the world's best marionette artist, and he's Canadian. He just won the Governor General Award.
Wow.
The first show I ever got to work on professionally was his, and now I've had the chance to do his PR for a couple shows and know him personally, which is wild to me.
How do you wrestle with that idea when you like somebody else is playing up here and you actually get to work with them and like how do you
be cool?
keep it together?
Keep it together. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, just be cool. Because I'm just like, I just geek out over it. Loved him. And then they had a really wild Edward Albee play that year and had a really divisive response from the audience. So I got to see how that went. And yeah, I just learned so much. And the people in that department wrote me a letter to get me in to the MRU, which at the time was MRC, Public Relations Program, which was a great program too.
Did you know that was the kind of like next step?
I didn't know that publicity was a thing until I don't think I knew I had been doing it.
Yeah.
So I applied to that while I was a JA, and then I got in, which was very cool. I was one of the only students in the program that year who didn't have some kind of prerequisite. So it was like another situation of being thrown in without like college experience.
Yeah.
But again, great profs and great friends who were like, okay, well, we'll teach you how to do this. We'll teach you how to be a student, and then finish that as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
Because
working through this time, or
no, you couldn't at the time. That program, I think it's now like a 4-year full degree. It was an applied degree at the time, so your semester's off. You were in practicum. So I knew I wanted to do both practicums, and I knew I wanted one to be in a field I wanted, and one that I knew I didn't want, which was my parents' advice.
Where'd you end up?
I went to the first one at the Banff Center, which is like heaven on earth. And I loved every minute of it there. So I was there all summer working on their Banff Summer Arts Festival. And then I did the second one at an insurance brokerage, and I loved it. And I thought, oh shit. I thought I want to do publicity and I want to do it in the arts. So then I went to an insurance company and did internal comms. And I also loved that. And I loved all the people who were there. And I ended up staying on after I finished school. And I was like, well, maybe I'll do this, I guess, until I figure out what's next.
Do you just trust that? Like when you end up there after school, do you just trust that this is like what it is right now, or like how much thought did you give it?
Well, I was probably 21 or 22, and it paid pretty well. And I thought, oh, cool, I've never seen a person in the arts say that things pay super well, so maybe I should enjoy this little treat while it lasts. But I had great bosses, and I really liked the work, and it was storytelling. It was, you're engaging people. I learned a lot while I was there. And while I was at school, I met someone named Sheena who had a PR firm, and she had come to speak to the students, and she talked about making connections and networking. And she said that when she was in university in BC, she made pink business cards with her name on them and just handed them to people while she was a student, and got to get on lists and be invited to things. And I had done the exact same thing. I had pink business cards in my bag. So I walked up to her after and I was like, hi, I don't think I ever want to work at a PR firm. I don't know, but in case you ever need anything, same. I did the same thing. And then sure enough, she called me, and I went to go work for her after I left the insurance company to go work for her.
Why'd you make pink cards? What was your like?
I think it was probably just like a template. To be honest.
But it's like bold, right? It's bold to
It's a bold color.
Flip over that.
I thought it would just, I saw my parents hand business cards out a lot. We had like a Rolodex. You remember those things?
Yeah.
Next to the Maestro caller ID.
Next to the answering machine.
And then I had a list of, my brother will hate this, but I had a list of girls on it that if they called the house, we weren't supposed, he was always in the shower, so it was like a whole thing.
For sure.
So I don't know. I just maybe came from a bit of an outdated mindset, but I had a flip phone and a pink business card.
Just crushing.
I just was like, well, that's funny because like same. So here you go. But she kept it and she called me. So I guess it worked.
And that was your first traditional kind of PR firm?
Yeah. She was wonderful and threw me in like feet first. And I got to account manage a lot of cool projects like Tourism Calgary and Calgary Stampede and the Core Shopping Center. And I learned a lot. Learned a lot. Worked really hard. Learned a lot about how agency works. And I think the biggest thing I took away from working in that world, because it wasn't arts, it wasn't like a lot of really cool city projects. And the thing that was proven over and over again was like, you got to love the people that you're working with and you got to believe in the thing.
Yeah.
And if it's not something that's necessarily in your wheelhouse, you have to find what it is to fall in love with. Like if you can't fall in love with it, how could you ever convince other people to? So I think I got really good at that there.
That's interesting.
Of like, I'm going to figure out what it is about this thing. Like I don't ski, but I worked on a ski resort. So like, how do I fall in love with that world so that I can talk about it like I love it? And then I always would. I would always love it.
What was your, like that example? The ski hill one, you know, if you don't.
Oh, I loved ski culture. I thought that was rad.
Like the personalities behind it, just like what they wear and how they like.
It's not about, I remember my older brother, the athlete, he did ski. And so I think I saw like the athletic side of it and the competition side of it growing up. But it was Kicking Horse that we worked on. Cool. Like the vibe at Kicking Horse was so fun. It is so fun. I was just there. So I fell in love with that. And the folks who worked on that team at the time were like so generous about including me in that world, even though I'd fall over on skis. But they were great. You find the thing to fall in love with, and then once you have found that, then you can just be like authentically enthusiastic. Yeah,
it's a different approach. I found it like your whole storytelling thing obviously clicks with me for what I actually do, but like finding the thing takes some energy to go figure that out. Like
does take energy.
Yeah. Like it's just, you're not just sitting there waiting for someone to show up. You actually have to go put some effort into it and figure it out.
Yeah.
It's rare.
And I think she was really good at, you know, when a client would come into that agency, she would decide, you know, who is it that's the best fit. But not everything was like an automatic fit. Yeah. So you have to figure it out. Yeah. Otherwise, like, it would be really hard. It's easier to fall in love with it than it is to just grind on something that you don't care about.
Yeah. How long were you there?
A couple of years.
Yep. What did the transition out look like?
I was dating somebody at the time who had their own business. And I was like, I don't want to do this.
And you like smile about it, you said it earlier, but
I'm like, I never wanted it.
And never like, did you not think about it, or did you put a block in your head, be like, I'm not doing it?
I genuinely didn't want it. I genuinely really appreciated the structure of a paycheck and vacation time. And I really liked it. It's very safe. It's very comforting. And so I really liked that. And I'm a little like a A-type Virgo in that way. Yep. Like I do really like structure. So I didn't want it. And when Sheena hired me, she asked me a great question. She was like, who will you leave me for? Like, tell me right now, like, is it, you know, Oprah walks down and offers you a job? Is that the dream? Like, well, who are you going to leave me for? And I think she was asking to see like, well, any other agency would have been a bad answer. Yeah. And also like, what is this kid passionate about? Like, what projects can I give her that's going to, you know, light her up and make her work really hard? And so it was a great question. And I said, oh, probably Cirque du Soleil. I think that's the coolest entertainment brand. So I was like, I would love to work on Broadway, and I would love to work on Cirque du Soleil. And yeah, if I magically learned French and I could run away with the circus, I would do that. And so
she's like, I like this person.
Yeah, great. She's like, well, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, totally. We got one.
We're going to have so many hours. French isn't a possibility. So she was right. I still can't speak French. So I stayed there for a while, and then a whole bunch of things kind of happened at once. I was probably very burnt out. Yep. I worked really, really, really hard, and wasn't the best at managing my own work-life balance. And I loved the work. So it, you know, there was no part of me that didn't want to work really, really hard. Yep. But it was, you know, the cycle of moving through, I felt like I could kind of done a lot of the things that I wanted to do at that company. And I was ready for a bit of a change. And I was dating somebody who is also an entrepreneur, and like I can't shake these people. And she was an entrepreneur, by the way, a wonderful one. So like they're all around me. Mm-hmm. And one day he looked at me and he was like, so you work really hard, and you have these other people who are interested in working with you in the arts specifically, and maybe not in like traditional PR, but in more digital storytelling or whatever. And you know, you could probably work a little less hard and maybe make the same. And my parents were, you know, dealing with some other business stuff. And I was like, oh, I might like to be involved in what they're doing. So a bunch of things happened at once. And I I thought, well, maybe I'll just take a break and I'll work on a couple of these projects with my parents or in the arts that I wanted to work on for like a minute. And then I'll go get another job. And yeah, and then now it's been
Now you're deep into this.
more than a decade and I never did that.
Did you was it because you watched your parents for so long, just like work as hard as they did, maybe not get the things that some other people had? Is that the thing that just like put up this wall that you didn't want to go there?
If we didn't have all the money in the world, like I would have never known. Like I had the happiest, most abundant, joyful childhood. Honestly, a beautiful childhood. And I'm so grateful that if they were going through struggles, which I now understand, like of course they were, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I think it was just like maybe a grass is greener.
Yeah.
I liked the structure so much that I thought, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to ever have to work on vacation or put off something because you have work going on. Like I saw people who were allowed to just not work at home, and I thought, oh, that's great. And now I'm like, oh my God, I got such an incredible childhood with parents who were totally available to me all the time because they made their schedules work for us.
Yeah.
So I can see it now, but of course you never, when you're a kid, how do you know?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. But they were great. They did everything right. I maybe just didn't understand the pros and cons of the other side until I saw it. And then I end up working for an awesome entrepreneur, and I was dating at the time an awesome entrepreneur, and I was like, okay, well, maybe for just like a minute, I'll just do that for a minute. And one of them was Comic-Con. It was Calgary Expo.
Yeah.
And so I knew those guys, and I was a trade show kid because I grew up at trade shows at the BMO Center. And so I had a friend who worked on that project call and say, well, we've moved to the BMO and we don't really know the BMO that well. And I know I volunteered for your mom's show, so maybe you can come volunteer for this and see what you think. And I was like, I have no idea what a Comic-Con is. I have brothers, so I've obviously been forced to watch Star Wars, but like, sure. And I fell in love with that world. Like the nerds shall inherit the earth, like the unbridled passion and enthusiasm and like letting their freak flag fly. I found it so cool. And so I kept volunteering for them and then consulting with them. And then by the time it was time to open Shareworthy, they were client number one, basically. And I've been now working on Comic-Con for a really long time.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What was your kind of pivot to decide to open your business? What was the thing that just you're like if finally I'm going to do this? What was
I don't think I saw it as opening a business. I think it was just like, there's this project I really like, and these people who I really like working with, and I'm ready to move on from this other thing, which I was so grateful for, but it was just time. And so I was like, I'm going to take a minute to take these opportunities and just see what feels good. And then in a couple months when they're done and I've sort of served my community in the way that I wanted to, I will go work at a corporate thing.
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Over a decade now?
It was 2013.
Amazing. The first few years, what they look like for you as far as finding work, dealing with some like the stresses, whatever has like had your attention? What were the early days? Or maybe it's just like you found
I don't think I struggled.
You found your people and just like did the
I don't
thing?
think I struggled because I loved what I was doing. So I'm sure I was working my patootie off, but like I didn't really think of it as work. And also that's kind of what I know. Like agency is like that. You just pour yourself into it.
Yeah.
And that's what I grew up with was like, if you're loving it, then just do it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like too much work. I'm sure, if anyone's watching this who knew me when I was like 27, like I'd love to know what a jerk I was at getting back to people. But yeah, I don't remember being miserable. I don't remember the struggle. I was really fortunate. I got like a small business startup loan it was called the like Canadian Young Business something. I think it's now called Futurepreneur.
Okay.
So they gave me a mentor that I met with once a week for 2 years. And I don't remember, it was 10 grand or 15 grand or something, just in startup cash.
Yep.
And at the end of 2 years, you gave it back, or you could start paying it off like tax free. It was a great program. I think it still exists.
Yep.
And I never used it. So I had like a little security cushion of this little pile of cash, but I never needed it. And so I, met with my mentor a couple times, and she was great. She was like, no, it seems to be going well. You're fine.
You got this.
You got this. And also, you're very lucky because you have people in your life who are also entrepreneurs. You're not starting in this world completely on your own, a fish out of water. So I was really lucky. She was really nice, but she was like, yeah, you kind of already have a community. So good for you. And I just carried on. I worked on Calgary Expo, and then a couple other arts and culture projects came on, and they were exploding at the time. So it was such an exciting project to be contributing to. Within a couple years, they were like bringing Spock to Vulcan and reuniting the cast of Star Trek, and the Comic-Con bubble hadn't really burst yet, where every city had one. Like people were coming in from all over, and Calgary became one of the biggest in North America. And then they had other shows. They had Saskatoon and they had Edmonton, and so it was really exciting. There was times in the year where I was really busy, and then there was times when I had times to kind of recoup and plan and strategize, and I figured eventually this will be less fun, or I'll be less interested, or it'll stop making sense financially, and then I'll just go get a job. But it never happened. It just never did. And I just kept loving it. So yeah, I carried on.
There's like this very organic path to it. Like a bunch of experiences that kind of just, so when you're in the situation, you're like, well, it just fits quickly. And that's when I was asking, when I started my business, there was some, not like struggles, but I had some shit to figure out. But I didn't have all this foundational pieces behind me that actually led me to this moment.
It comes down, I think, to that do good work and be nice to people bit.
When did you figure that out?
Oh, I hope
Just
really
saw it?
early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably the hard way, probably by screwing up.
Yeah.
I'm not nice to everybody every minute of every day. So it's but I think, I don't know. I just think part of it was luck. Part of it was the right relationships at the right time, being generous. I think I think there's a limited number of people who are as enthusiastic about these things as I am. Maybe it's not, the color blue. Is a little niche. And I would genuinely do it for free.
Yeah.
So there was no sense of me getting into this to build a business. It was, I'm passionate about this. I would rip the tickets at the door if I could.
Yeah.
So I'm here to actually help. I really wanted to make a difference. And so I think people saw that and welcomed me in. And then the fact that I got to make money and build a business and all of that was gravy. I wasn't doing it to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't doing it to make money. I was genuinely doing it because I really, really liked it. And I was good at it. I could help.
Do you get to mentor many people? Do you get to speak in front of classes and do the thing? I just feel like that message gets lost in today's world.
It's funny. I listened to a couple of the podcasts, and I watched all of Lourdes, obviously. It's funny when I hear people talking about this hunger to become an entrepreneur. I wanted to figure out how to become an entrepreneur or start a business. I can't necessarily relate to that.
Yep.
I, in a way, kind of got lucky just being the right person at the right time. And it's weird to me that people would want it. It's weird. That's but you could probably make a lot more or have a lot more security or have an easier path if you did everything else. Yeah. So I can't say that when I talk to classes or meet people or I have people ask me for coffee or whatever, I'm not sitting down as here's everything I know about how to become an entrepreneur. It's just, if you figured out a way to love the reason that you wake up in the morning, great. And if that means going to work in a corporate situation, great. If that means you have to start your own thing, great. But it's just the medium for that message. It's whatever makes sense for you to do what you love.
I kind of like the way you hack the system, whether it's doing it for free because you want to be around the like-minded people and experience something, and show up, be a good human. Like all those basic things I feel get overlooked so often.
And I had incredible privilege for sure to be allowed into those spaces and to be given those chances, which I don't forget. But I did put my hand up and say I'd like to come in. So that takes a certain amount of bravery. So if anything, it's just encouraging people to ask.
Yeah. Sometimes like that might be looked at as being lucky, you know, like, but you actually have to put yourself in that situation to actually create an opportunity. So I'm not sure if it's just like
maybe
sit back like dumb luck, or if it's actually.
Maybe I shouldn't say I'm lucky, but I was fortunate. I was fortunate that Mac said, there's this thing you should apply for.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. I wouldn't even have known what to Google. I don't even know if I knew how to use Google. And then, you know, I'm fortunate that the people in the PR department of Alberta Theatre Projects knew about the PR program.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I met Sheena at that program. You know, all of these things along the way, whether it's good fortune or luck, whatever.
Yeah. What about the idea of like putting good things into the universe, and that actually it comes back?
I think that that's kind of all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Right place, right time, right energy, the bravery to ask the question, the bravery to put your hand up, and enough people seeing me and believing in me along the way to say, well, Alex would be good for that.
Yeah. And I guess right beside that is the ability to actually do the work. Like when you actually, when it comes down, when that time comes to actually deliver on something, there's that piece too.
Yeah.
Like a minor detail.
Minor detail. It honestly feels like the lesser of the details, to be honest. I don't think anybody does anything in this world unless, I'll say the entertainment world or the arts world or the PR world, like unless you love it.
Yeah.
It's so much work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do love it a lot.
Over 10 years. When have you put to bed the idea that
I'm unhireable?
Or now you are?
I am now,
you
yeah,
are?
for
Okay.
sure.
So you put to bed the idea that you can't the corporate structure, you're done with it. Now you're unhireable.
I still think there's lots of really attractive things about that. And I think I'd be fine. Honestly.
Would you though? Could you shut it all down and like, go do that?
Sure.
For the right thing?
For the right thing.
Because you're less about the, like you've said, you're less about like doing.
I'm not like in love with being an entrepreneur. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. I love what I do, but I love the work that I get to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I got the call to go do something incredible and I didn't have commitments to other things that I also thought were incredible, I feel like I'm unhireable now because I have like a dream situation. Like how could I ever compare anything else to this?
Yeah.
So I'm so lucky that I've set it up the way I like it.
How do you explain this dream situation? When you say
I get to work on the coolest projects. Not cool maybe to anybody else, just to, like for me, it's the coolest collection of projects. But like I remember my parents bringing me to see Cirque du Soleil in Calgary. We saw Alegria.
I think I saw that one. Was that one of the first ones?
One of the first.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think
one,
it may be the first big
okay.
top show.
Yep.
And my life was changed. I remember everything about that experience. I remember.
Over by Curry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the gates. I remember the popcorn. I remember everything.
Amazing.
And there was no part of me, like I don't remember the moment of like, one day I'm going to do this. I just remember that it imprinted. I don't think I didn't know that people could do that. So that didn't occur to me. But I just remember thinking that it was the coolest thing I had ever experienced. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, that must have been so expensive and such a commitment for my parents to like, they saw Cirque du Soleil when it was like a fringe style touring thing before it had a big top, and they thought it was cool. So they were following it. Yeah. And so they found a way to make us go and blow our minds. And I remember the first time I saw a Broadway musical and thinking that was the best thing in the whole goddamn world. Like the best thing. I memorized the cast albums. I remember everything.
Just like
I could probably tell you every cast member that was in the touring cast of Les Mis when I was 11. Like I could tell you everything. And I would rent books from the library and memorize them. Like I would write it all down. I wanted to know exactly where Bernadette Peters' dressing room was. Like I wanted to know every detail. So it's the most, like it's the thing I know the most about. So yeah, the fact that I get to work on those projects now.
So you do now.
Yeah.
So full circle.
Full circle. This morning we announced that Cirque du Soleil is coming back to Calgary. So it's, yeah, really full circle conversation. It's just I feel the most privileged, honestly. Yeah.
Over the years, like, has it just been this like steady, like, growth all the way up? Over the last like 10 years, it's just pretty steady, like steady projects. And do you have expectations around anything, or do you just kind of show up, do it, be yourself, and just let things grow?
I think it depends on how you define growth.
It could be like personal and like business wise, like revenue.
Sure. It's gotten busier.
Yep.
I think our work's gotten better as we learn more. I think audiences have changed so much. The media market has changed so much. The only thing that maybe hasn't changed is like the caliber of what the artists do. So we have to figure out the new ways of spreading that gospel and of telling those stories. So it's gotten harder.
Yep.
So we've gotten better. That's changed a lot. We've gotten busier and got to work on maybe bigger projects, more international brands.
Yep.
But it has felt steady to me. And then just before the pandemic brought on more team. So had started, full-time people committed to the company was like a big step up.
Like a big step, right?
Big step from like contractors or supporting, collaborating with other companies to defining and saying, you know what, I'm not just a general, I don't say yes to every project. I am an arts agency. I'm going to say yes to these projects and I'm going to speak out into the universe like these are the kinds of projects I want to work on. And then to be in the position to go for those and get them was like a big, big leap.
Yep. Did it just feel right? I find that very interesting because I'm like not in the same spot, but thinking about those types of things. But like to bring people on full time and then to like niche down and say what it is you do. Both are
at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it at the same time.
And you just trusted it. Like you just felt like that was
trusted it, but with a handful of years.
Data behind you.
Yeah, a few years of knowing I was in the position where I had to.
Yeah.
And I worked with an incredible strategist named Tanya Puka, who went through like a branding process with me. It's like the shoemaker's children have no shoes. Like people who do this for other people, it's so hard to do it for yourself. Like if you told me I had to write a bio for myself, it would take me 6 weeks.
Isn't that ridiculous?
It's so hard. It's miserable. And I will say my partner, when I started my business, we're no longer together, but he the one thing he was really good at was like the SNL philosophy of like the show doesn't go on because it's perfect. It goes on because it's 11:30. Like it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be precious. It just needs to go. And if you need to fix something, you can fix something. Like this is not rocket science. He was really good at that. So I was good at improvising for a lot of it. And then I went through this process with Tanya and halfway through the life of my company where she was like, no, the feedback we're getting about you and about the company is it's time to decide. It's time to be more intentional. And she was wonderful. And her company's called Marrow. So it was like therapy for my business. Yep. And so I went through this process. She's incredible. And at the end, she sort of spit me out this like roadmap of like, here's the things that you have been denying that you're ready to do. And I listened to her and this really beautifully delivered, thoughtful, incredibly positive feedback. And I listened and I thanked her. And then I got in my car, drove 4 blocks and threw up. Pulled over into the Co-op liquor store parking lot, threw up. and then I sat there and I thought, shit, okay. And then I went into the liquor store and I bought $300 worth of booze because I felt so bad for throwing up in their parking lot. I still have it. I don't even drink. I'm allergic to gin, and I bought gin that day, so it's still on my bar cart. I feel so bad. I ended up calling and telling her, and she was horrified. She was like, "No, it's not what we wanted." And I was like, "No, that was not a you problem. That was a me problem." I just my body was like, "Oh crap, it's time to go."
That's what it was?
Yeah. So thanks to her sort of nudge. And she had collected feedback from our clients and our projects, and they basically were like, yeah, this is what's next. And I was like, okay, great. And then we went. So then, brought on more team, really decided this is what we do really well. So this is what we're going to do. And nobody will care more about those kinds of projects than me.
Right.
Like, may not be perfect, may be learning as we're going, but I can pretty much promise, like, there's nobody else in town who will really care about your musical. You know, like I really want it to be successful. So if for whatever that's worth, that's, I think, our value proposition. We're good at what we do, but we really genuinely love this world, and we are audience, and we are fans, and we do want you to be successful. So I think that helped. And then the kinds of people that wanted to work with me were the same kinds of people.
Yeah. You just kind of attract like-minded people
Nerds.
when you put it out there.
Just if you just like, I'm just a nerd. If you would work for free to see Ronnie Burkett, like, then you probably are a good fit to work with me. And we don't obviously make people work for free, but it is because you love it. Yeah. Because takes so much energy, to your point, to get excited about something. Yeah. That's what we cut out.
You're there.
We're there. Yeah. So by the time we've signed on for a project, there's not a single project I have where I'm like not stoked about it. Not a single one. I love them. I pay to go to all the shows, like, I'm a subscriber to Broadway across Canada, and I have been since I was 11. Like, I have been to every show. So I'm so lucky that, I get to work on some projects like that. But like, and for however long they'll have me, I'm going to be there. And then when they decide that they want someone else, I will still be there. I just genuinely love it.
You can't fake it.
I can't fake it.
Like, it's just kind of...
No, and it takes too much energy to fake it. Yeah. And that energy is devoted to the projects that I care about. So there's a no assholes policy. There's like a enthusiasm over ego policy, and be here because you really love what we get to do. Because it takes too much work and too much energy to fake love it, fake care about it. Yeah. And that energy is just so much better used on stuff that we really love. Yeah.
Fascinating. That pivot after you threw up.
I would like to formally apologize to the Co-op liquor store in the Beltline.
Did you know right away, like, how clear that was? Mm-hmm. And for me, like, listening to it, I'm like, I think I want to go do that.
Oh, you got to call Tanya. It was like having a mirror, like, just shown at me that was like... But
I felt like you had a good idea what you were up to, right?
Yep. And successful at that.
Yeah.
But here's the honest answer. Here's what she said. She called all of our clients, competitors, media, everybody in our ecosystem, and she interviewed them about us. And she handed me back this list of insights, which were so powerful. But everybody's feedback, and it was anonymous, but there was a couple that I could kind of tell, was basically we are hiring Shareworthy, which is my company. It's called Shareworthy. Yep. We're hiring Shareworthy on paper for social media, and I'm using air quotes for this podcast. This is a visual medium, for this thing, this line item, right, on a billable thing. But what we are actually working with them for is their strategic mind as like people who really know this world and are passionate about it and know this market incredibly well, Western Canada. They know the players. They know what else is out there. They know when we come to a show with a show to promote it, like what that audience member is also being promoted by other people. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but we knew that ecosystem so well that we could help position them and what timing works best and what messages will land and where audiences are growing and who's buying tickets and who's not and where, that was what they were And so I was like, okay, so I need to get out of my head of what is a simple structure and more focus on genuine value. And so that's when I was like, okay, then if that's the case, that takes up so much energy, then that's all we're going to do is that we're going to put the flag in the sand and say, yeah, we work in arts, culture, live events, public engagement, community engagement, and that's what we do. So we've had like awesome fun working on things that aren't necessarily arts related, like Village Brewery and Camp Brand Goods or the Livery Shop, because those are businesses, retail businesses that have the same philosophy as like an arts and culture one, that it's about community. It's about relationships with the people around you. So that translates. But for the most part, we work in this other space, which is niche and special, and I think the coolest thing ever. But if it weren't for her, I think saying, according to everybody in your life, not me, but according to everybody in your life, this is what you're already doing. You're just not saying that you're doing it. So say that you're doing it. Once you say it out loud that that's what you're good at, other people who want that thing are going to find you. Yeah. And within 16 months of doing that, I had every single dream project I had ever wanted to contribute to, and I was set. It might not be for forever. They might watch this and think, wow, she's such a dork. We're going to move on.
Yeah, right.
But if that's the case, then I feel privileged to have worked on them for as long as I did, because it means that much to me.
Can you say it so honestly?
Yeah, call Tanya. She'll take your business to therapy, and then you two can vomit in a public space.
I don't want to throw up.
It was what I was ejecting something, I guess. I didn't know how scared I was.
Yeah.
Until my body told me, oh yeah, this is really scary to say out loud.
Yeah.
Because everything had to come, I've never thought about this, but like you said, it happened organically.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, when it stops, I'll do something else. It wasn't until that point that I had to declare, like, I love this and I want to do this. And that takes some guts, I think. It takes some vulnerability, because once you've said, this is what means to me, then if it's taken away, it could look like a failure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm running my scenario of my life in my head right now against yours. And it's like, when you say the thing, what you want to do, if nobody wants, if nobody wants that thing, you're like, fuck, I just deleted all these other options that I could have gone down, but this is the thing.
And this is maybe a naivete from the being so fortunate to have found paths, is like, if you do good work and you are nice to people, like, if it's not the thing that you thought you were going to have, there will be something else.
Yeah. And
I do genuinely believe that. I have 20 years of work experience to prove that that's true. So I don't think I have a lot of fear. There's certainly like nights where I feel anxious still. If certain projects, for whatever reason, maybe the company was sold, or the people that I worked with at that company like retired, and then the next person that comes in comes with another team that they love. Like, I like to think, hopefully we won't lose connection with projects that we love working on because we're bad at it. I really, really hope that that's the case. But there's things that can happen, and I do have a team now, and I, obviously, like, there's that layer of being a business owner that is stressful. Yeah. But I do intrinsically know that I'm doing the right thing with my life. So at least I know I'll figure it out.
It's a rare thing to say.
Yeah,
like,
I feel very lucky.
Yeah.
I genuinely figured out exactly what I want to do when I was 17. How incredibly blessed was I?
Crazy.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of people, and it's rare to hear that.
Maybe if I had discovered at 17 that I was really good at, or had a path to becoming like a billionaire, I don't know, race car driver, I would be in a different position. But like, I don't know if I'm the most successful or the most, I don't know, by other measures, other than I genuinely am happy. And that to me was all I ever really wanted. Yep. And that, I think, is what I saw my parents like teach us, which is like, you have to love what you do. Mm-hmm. You have to achieve that. And whether that's the kind of work or the kind of company or the kind of thing you create that makes you $1 million, or it's something else. Like, that's okay. And so, yeah, I feel very lucky to have been successful in finding out what I like to do and then being able to make a company out of it.
Yeah, like double down and crush it. Do you have an idea what this looks like in the next? Do you ever put dates to anything? Do you have an idea where this ship goes?
I wish I could say that I did, because I feel like entrepreneurs are supposed to have a 5-year plan.
No way.
I don't have it.
I think it's less of a thing than we think it is.
You think?
Oh yeah, totally.
In your experience, how many people answer that question like they know what the next thing is?
I would say 90% don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I'm supposed to know. I don't. I know. I know that in a couple weeks I'm going to Vancouver for Comic-Con. I know after that I'm going to Edmonton for Cirque du Soleil. I know in the summer that Disney's The Lion King is coming, and I cannot wait. I know that Cirque du Soleil is coming to Calgary in the fall. I know some production schedules for 2026 that I'm really excited that hopefully, if all goes well, I'll have the privilege of working on. I know almost every day where I will be for the next 18 months all the time. But that is about it. Yeah.
It seems like a great spot.
Yeah. It means like Beyonce announced her concert dates today. I'm devastated because I know every day that I can't go see Beyonce. That sucks. If that's not being a business owner, I don't know what is. Like this whole well, you get to make your own schedule. No, not even for Beyonce. I don't get to make my own schedule. So yeah, I do know everywhere I'll be for the next little bit. And I like to think that if all of that pans out and I'm there, and that's that it would then roll into the next thing.
Yep.
I have some awesome team members on the team who also know those dates and like are looking forward to that. But I want to see their careers grow. So I know like I do have that vision of investing in their growth as young professionals.
Yep.
I have that vision for it. I like to think as long as like we're doing well and we're happy doing it, that we'll just keep doing it. But that's about it.
Yep.
I wish I had a...
No, but
I don't know.
That's the answer that needs to be heard. Because a lot of people think it's the other answer.
Yeah, maybe.
And so that's why I like getting into these conversations, because it's like I appreciate this thought process because it's more in line with what I think about. But as a youngster, you never hear these ideas.
Yeah.
And that's why
I did. I for sure did. I don't think Sheldon Lenora ever had a 5-year plan. But then maybe we wouldn't have been able to do all the incredible things we got to do when we were kids. So yeah. Like looking back, I'm incredibly grateful and humbled by how hard they worked and how much they taught us just by how hard they worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But like, if you tell me any like 30 days in like your next 18 months, I will fill your calendar and I will pull your phone out and make you buy tickets to things. And I will guarantee you a good time. So like that I can do. The sort of joke in our friend group is that like, if I was like walking down the aisle at my own wedding and somebody in the pew next to me was like, I'm going to New York next weekend, what should I see? I would stop and I would turn. I'd be like, excuse me, sir, give me 1 minute. I'm just going to have to help these people pick out a show in New York. Like, it's my favorite thing to do. So if next time you go to New York, you call me and I will help you pick out a show. And that I can help plan. But yeah, that's about the limit of my planning ability. Yeah, that's it. It's when the next seasons are announced, that's about as far as I get.
Could you have done this anywhere else?
No.
Or is Calgary like that?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. Calgary has a vocabulary for entrepreneurship that I don't think a lot of places have. I think I was so young. I was 20. I'm just trying to do the math in my head. 25, 26.
No more math.
Gross. look, I know 25-year-olds now, and I'm like, what do you know about life? Like, how did you think you could start a company? Like, that's insane. But in my head, I wasn't starting a company. I was just taking on a couple things I really wanted to contribute to. It wasn't big. So I see how it happened. But I didn't have grand delusions about how I was the perfect person for everything. And I just tried to just work hard and learn. But I don't think very many other places would give that kind of trust or chance to a young woman who was relatively new to the city. Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
This has been really cool.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's such a unique experience for me to just like sit across and hear these stories, because it's like, you can imagine what I take away from everyone.
Yeah, I bet.
This one is like, obviously you know what I'm like stuck on. It's just like puking in that experience, which I'm just like, fuck, I don't think I got it.
Look, everyone's got to have one, right?
I agree. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
My first thought is Arts Commons, which is soon to be the Workland Center, and formerly the Epcor Center. Because I was from Red Deer, when we came to Calgary, it was like sometimes to see a show or to, visit the skating rink or to go to, Eau Claire or something. Like we would do, my mom would pull us out of school when there was like runs, like again, not an athlete. There was something called the Daw Run where everybody would just like go on a fun run, or like the Terry Fox run. And she was like, yeah, you're not capable of that.
You're gonna hurt yourself.
You're going to hurt yourself. It's a 5K. Watch out. Anyway, we would come to Calgary and do fun things together as a family instead. Probably shouldn't tell our teachers that. We were sick for everyone. So I remember going to the theater young.
Yep.
And I remember feeling for the first time like a grown-up as a JA at Alberta Theatre Projects. And even now, like we get to work on the High Performance Rodeo, which is this incredible, wild 3-week theater festival. It just ended yesterday. And it's 39 years old. It's, about to celebrate this massive milestone. And I remember like being in college and hanging out at the Laycraft Lounge because I wanted to see these performers. So I remember that. And then I was there just 4 times this week to see productions. So for me, it's sort of like the beating heart nucleus of the city. So when I bring people to the city, even if there's not a show on, I feel the need to bring them there, which maybe is they're like, it's just, it's just an empty building unless you're seeing or experiencing something. But for me, that feels like the center. I would have to look at a map and see if it actually is the center. It probably isn't, but in my head it is. It's like that's the middle of the city for me. Being a kid and seeing what was possible in Calgary. And then now, it feels like the middle of it. And I'm so excited for what they're doing over the next couple of years. This huge transformation. Alex Kingcott has become a great friend, and I'm so stoked for him and his team. It's going to be really cool. But it does feel like they're renovating my childhood home a little bit. So I have some skin in the game. I really want it to be nice. It feels a little bit like someone has like torn apart my childhood bedroom, and I know they probably feel that from a lot of people. So it's a big responsibility. But yeah, go see a show. Go check out Arts Commons. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's cool to be connected now. The art thing is interesting for me. I'm around it.
Yeah.
In this kind of space, I'm just kind of around it. So to hear somebody that like Rick feels it's cool.
It's a huge economic driver for this province. It's it takes an incredible amount of work and talent, and they work incredibly hard, and they deserve worlds of respect. Yeah. So yeah, it's a privilege to work in that world. And hopefully it's demystified so that it doesn't, so that all of that work is appreciated, but that you can still go see something and just, melt into your seat and enjoy it as an audience member. Hopefully we haven't ruined it by talking about ourselves. It's very weird to be. I'm not the on-camera person. I'm usually backstage. I'm backstage Barbie. I'm not out here. So this is weird. But yeah, thanks for the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.